Welcome back to a Carlton Witch Ramble, this time finally about Carlton. So, welcome to 2026. If this is the first time you are seeing my face, I combine astrology and my love for Carlton. I found Carlton through astrology and I have been tracking their energy for a number of years now, and I love the combination of the two going together. I was pretty confident that Carlton have been on the right path to have a very good year. I think we made it to May last year before we had a pretty significant astrological shift where I believe that Carlton went the wrong way. And then we progressively got taught lessons until the end of the year, where we managed to make some incredibly huge changes, all of which, of course, by Mr. Gemini Stellium Graham Wright coming in and really pushing over those dominoes and making some changes happen. And since he came in August of 2025, we've had a number of people leave, a number of people coming in, and we have really seen a lot of that negative energy just dissolve. And that is a positive sign. And in astrology, I have been following along astrologically with the journey. And it seems to me like we have been making some very correct decisions. I had said in a number of videos that Carlton had a really low number of Gemini Aquarius placements across the whole entire chart in comparison to the other football team. So it's really nice to see another Gemini, Liam Reidy, and another Aquarius, Ben Ainsworth. We lost a number of people that I think maybe had you have asked the Carlton fans at the beginning of 2025 whether or not we should get rid of them, I think there would have been a pretty overwhelming no. People like De Koning, Kerno, Silvani. But as it so turns out, I don't actually think that's been a bad thing. Tom De Koning, a Cancer energy, we didn't really need any more of that. So off you pop to St Kilda. And Jack Silvani, Sagittarius energy. Carlton has an overwhelming number of Sagittarius energied people. And he can take that and his curse and he can run back to mummy and daddy. Great choice. Thank you so much, Mr. Jack Silvani, for leaving the Carlton Football Club. I am going to choose to believe that part of you knew. Part of you knew that Carlton would never win a flag with a Silvani on the team. And I think you maybe did us a little bit of a favor. And I still hold out hope, as you are, Jack, one of the only Silvanis that seems to have a chance at outrunning that curse. So I do wish you the best of luck. I don't think you'll find it at St Kilda. We also lost Jackson Binns, Alex Chincotta, Orazio, which I was a bit sad about, Orazio and Chincotta, and Harry Lemmy. So, okay. Let's look at these new boys. Let's have a little bit of a look at the new boys because some of the energy of them, stunning. Okay. I do want to mention, and I think I have in a video before now, Will Hayward and Ollie Florent coming in as a team is such good vibes for Carlton. Carlton are a Taurus energy team, if you've been following along, and they do require that really comfortable family space in order to do their best work. So having these two players who were besties come down and join us as besties, so much better than if one had been sent alone. Okay, especially because they are both water sign people and they do tend to feel a lot of emotions. And I wasn't all for Ollie Florent, being that he had a lot of Cancer energy, and I wasn't all for Will Hayward, being that he had a lot of Scorpio energy. But with the change up in some of the board and some of the coaches within Carlton, I think that we're moving into a much better mix of a team. So let's go through some of the new boys in the 2026 team. And then I will touch on Jesse Motlop, okay? Because that is what triggered this video for me. So we will get to his energy and see what was going on. Okay. Let's start with Mr. Ben Ainsworth, an Aquarius stellium, number 12. I mean, firstly, we've given him number 12, and in astrology, number 12 is very related to things that are mystical and integrative. So being that Ben is an Aquarius who is somewhat replacing the Aquarius energy that we lost in Charlie Curnow. It's really interesting to me that he also has the number 12. Okay. And the number 12 is related to Pisces energy in astrology, which is also where Ben Ainsworth's masculine energy and his expansion energy is. So I think that's a very interesting choice of number. But let's just quickly have a bit of a look here. So Ben is a really interesting dude. Okay. This is someone who is a healing energy. He is designed to heal things. Unfortunately, with a Pisces South node and a Virgo North node, that kind of says that he is from a family that has experienced quite a lot of trauma generationally. And I would suggest that that runs through the father line. So the father line here coming from a lot of trauma. Okay. And some of that trauma does get in the way of him expanding. However, we are experiencing right now, astrologically, we have the North Node in Pisces. So Ben is being shown the way to his future through understanding, integrating, and finding wisdom in some of the trauma and the lessons of the past. And that's where he's going to be able to find the things that get in his way on expansion. And being an Aquarius Sun, Aquarius Mercury, Aquarius Uranus, Ben is very fast. Aquarius energy, it is an air energy, but it is more like electricity. It is more like the electricity that gets created from movement. Okay. If anyone follows astrology, you know that Aquarius is like somebody holding a jar, pouring out water into water, or just a jar of water getting poured out. Okay. And Aquarius energy is not the jar, it's not the water, it is the movement of the water. Aquarius energy understands that it has a job in the collective and it can oversee everything from that perspective. Okay. It sees things from the outer perspective. It generally feels through most of its life like it's quite strange. And Ben would be exactly that. Having a Uranus and a Neptune and a Mercury and a Sun in Aquarius, we are dealing with someone who probably felt like they communicated differently than a lot of other people. Somebody who is actually here to bring change. This generation of young people that have a Neptune in Aquarius, they are part of this massive change that we're all going through collectively. And it is them that are going to lead the way, being the weirdos that they are. Aquarius energy is the weirdo energy. And it is the energy that we are all moving towards collectively in this shift. And it is an energy that the Carlton Football Club needed desperately. Okay, we need people who can see things from a different perspective. And not only can he see things from a different perspective, but he thinks from a different perspective. Mercury represents our mind, our thought patterns, the giving and receiving of communication. And when it's in Aquarius like that, he communicates and sees things and thinks about things in a really different way to everybody else. This is someone who, and we see this a lot when we get all of this Aquarius energy, Venus in Capricorn, which right now Venus is in Capricorn, really great energy for him to be getting ready pre-season under, because it is a really locked in energy. It's a really hard working energy, right? And Venus represents our relationship space. It represents the feminine energy, things like intuition and emotions. And when it's in Capricorn, it is somebody who will make you work a little bit to get to know them. You will not see all of this person out on the table. And with a Mars in Pisces, you probably won't see everything about this person. Okay. Now, Saturn in Aries, it does mean that he experienced his father as someone who was very fiery. And often with this placement and combined with the father wound in Scorpio, this is a placement that really tells me that his father was very, very direct, very fiery and aggressive in his manner. Okay. He could have been aggressive physically, but without a birth time and Ben sitting in front of me, we're not going to know that for sure. But either way, this is someone who has taken all of that trauma from the family line and has been really gifted a way to purge it out. Okay. When we see these kind of wound placements in the past, karmically, like Ben has, and we can see, right, Mars and Jupiter expansion and masculine energy in Pisces energy, which is where the trauma gets collected, then we can see that he can actually use AFL to purge out that energy. Okay. Now, he does have that Chiron in Scorpio is quite a traumatic wound. It's a childhood wound. It is a childhood wound of powerlessness in a lot of ways. And a Libra Lilith is someone who does feel a little bit strange about relationships, probably like I mentioned, because they've spent a lot of their time feeling quite weird. So it's a desire for, but a fear of relationships with a Lilith in Libra. And that is one of the reasons why you need to work very hard to get to know this person before you will see the depth of who they are really as a person. This year for Ben, a number of energies are going to start rolling in for him. We are going to see some good stuff because when we get to the end of January, that Aquarius energy, how he sees the world, how he communicates, how he can pivot and change with his thoughts, and really being able to access the rewards that come from healing ancestral traumas are all being activated by the North Node. Now, the North Node represents where we are going. It represents our future, the lessons that we are here to learn, and it is going to move into Aquarius. And when the North Node moves into your sun sign, that's when you really start to get pulled in the direction that you are meant to be going. So right now we have the North Node in Pisces, and that is going to be really helping Ben purge out a lot of this stuff, right? A whole new change for him is really the best way forward based on the energies that I know are coming. I think February, March for Ben, I just be a little bit careful, but there's going to be some massive clarity for him. Okay. We've got some massive Aquarius energies 21st, 22nd, 23rd of January, and he's going to be building a whole new cycle with that Saturn in Aries. He's entering his Saturn return on the 27th of January. And a Saturn return is when you kind of get asked by the universe, what sort of a man are you going to be outside of what your dad taught you, outside of what your mom taught you, outside of what society teaches you? What sort of a man are you going to be moving forward? And the Saturn in Aries generation, particularly this age group of them, they tend to be coming from very aggressive fathers, like I mentioned. So asking them what sort of a man they want to be, especially someone who's an Aquarius, he definitely knows exactly the man that he doesn't want to be and is quite happy as an Aquarius to keep exploring the parts of him that he does want to be joining him and his values of being a man. A Mars in Pisces is a masculine energy that really is quite intuitive. So this person is mostly thoughts, right? His mind rules over everything. But when he uses his masculine energy, it is intuitive. So this is someone who has skills, has very well practiced skills. And then when he is playing, this is an intuitive player. And I love that for Carlton. I love that. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Will Hayward. Welcome, Will, number 19. Also interesting, the number 19, because it is a Libra energy in the astrology, and it is about the give and take and the cause and effect. Okay. So I think that will be a particularly little karmic thing for me if we really start to see Will causing some good karma. Now, Will is a Scorpio. Okay. Now, Scorpio energies, they can be a little bit too absorbent to emotions around them. And it's why I wasn't a big fan from the start. However, having really looked at this chart and looked at it in relation to the rest of the team, now he does have a couple of placements that could be slightly different based on birth time, just because some of them were at the very ending degrees. But based on what I can see about him and some of the energies that he's been dealing with, I am reasonably confident that most of this is correct. So Scorpio, Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Lilith and Chiron is a really challenging birth chart, okay? Someone with a Jupiter in Pisces as well, that tells me that trauma gets in the way of his expansion. And then when we look to what sorts of trauma, we're going to find the other water signs, and we're going to see Scorpio. And we're going to see both the mother and the father line having experienced quite a lot of trauma. And that is what makes him somebody who requires very deep emotional connections to be able to be in a relationship, personal relationship with someone. And this is someone who can really tell by how you talk to them whether you're being deceitful, whether you're lying, okay? Scorpio energy people are very good lie detectors as it is, but when it is also your Mercury and your Venus, you are an incredibly good lie detector, okay? So that's helpful because we know over the last couple of years with Carlton, there has been some sneaky shit going on. And the fact that we've got another lie detector in the midst, actually quite good. And with Uranus in Aquarius, the intelligence is insane. People with a Uranus in Aquarius, they often in their early days, people don't think they're smart. People don't think they're smart at all. And probably because he was a Scorpio as well. So a little bit kind of reserved, usually in their earlier days, Mars in Virgo as well. That this is someone who was probably not really seen for how intelligent they are, but somebody who has a Scorpio, a Mercury, and Uranus in Aquarius is someone who gets really obsessive about some of the things that they are interested in, right? There's an obsessive quality to it, okay? And even the Mars in Virgo. Mars in Virgo isn't really a great placement for anyone, let alone a man, because it can make you very critical either of others or yourself, and it can really give you quite an ego. And I wouldn't be surprised if Will does have a bit of an ego on him, but we wouldn't really see it out there in the world because with that Scorpio energy, they do like to keep it a little bit more under wraps, okay? And because we can see a North Node in Leo, it's not something, it's sort of the ego and the expression of who he is as a person is something that he is here to learn. And with a South Node in Aquarius, which is what you would have if you have a North Node in Leo, then you are kind of comfortable being a bit strange, being the weirdo, and you've kind of come from a place where you just knew that you were different from everybody else, okay? And you are different from everybody else. This is a very mystical energied person. This is somebody who is very intuitive as well. And when he uses his masculine energy, he is noticing the details in things and he is moving very habitually. Okay. This is definitely someone who has very good skills and obsessively learns them, obsessively. Like if he loves football, which you can only imagine that he does, and that is one of his obsessions, then the skills that he learns, that he puts the work in to learn, he really puts them in. Okay, with a Saturn in Taurus, that is discipline in a really hard work energy. Okay, now he may have experienced his father as somebody who worked very hard. Saturn in Taurus, that is one of the ways that it presents. Okay, or he may have just kind of experienced his dad as someone who is a little bit more surface level, a little bit more into as long as we look good. Okay, but either way, there's a hard work quality that he has learned, right? Either I watched him not do hard work and I'm definitely going to do it, or I watched him do hard work and I need to meet up to that standard. So a Neptune in Capricorn as well, that kind of does tell me that his dad probably had a lot of rules or his mum had a lot of rules, but there were a lot of rules growing up, okay? And that he had to try and fit into that box. And as someone who's a weirdo, Will, baby, you definitely did fit into any boxes. And this is someone who has experienced quite a lot of trauma over the last couple of years as well in their personal lives with the activations that we've seen in the astrology. And, especially at the end of last year, there was some really heavy energy for Scorpio placements. But with a Lilith and a Chiron in Scorpio, he's really moving into a new energy because Lilith finished up in Scorpio last year and she takes about 10 months and is there after 10, like it has to go all through all 12 signs. All right. So it's about 12 years before we have to deal with that again, 11 or 12 years. But next year for Will, huge energy. Okay. Because the North Node will be in Aquarius. So the South Node will be in Leo. So he will be having a nodal reversal, is what we call it in astrology. And it means that he will be finding his way forward to being able to personally express his own creative everything. But through learning these lessons of the past, right? And part of the lessons of the past, which could be quite hard for him, are going to involve having to look back on some stuff, right? Maybe even some karmic family stuff and really kind of dealing with that. He will have a little bit of rebellion kind of energy in his emotional space right now because all of this Sagittarius energy that you're about to be seeing has all got a bit of rebellion behind it at the moment. And they really are here to change things, to completely just dismantle a system and build a new one in its place. I think Will's energy matches up very well as long as there's no deceit going on, as long as there's no sneaky bullshit going on, okay? Because Will know and it will highly affect him. And so let's hope everyone's honest to you, Will, because otherwise you're going to know. I think you're going to fit in really well. And I'm really happy that you got to have your friend come with you. Okay. Let's go, Mr. Ollie Florent, number 14. Okay. Now, Ollie Florent shares a number of energies with Sam Walsh. And just a little astrological lesson, a stellium is when you have one or more placement in the same zodiac sign. And especially like this, when they're in all of the personal placements, okay? Now, Sam Walsh is a Cancer stellium as well, and there is some downsides to being a Cancer stellium, but there are some upsides. Being a stellium in general, the upside is that you tend to be someone who can really develop some skills because all of these parts of our psyche are speaking the same language and it doesn't take you as much time to figure yourself out, okay? But Cancer energy it's an emotional energy, right? And if you remember from any of my other videos, it absorbs the emotions from people around it. He is absorbing all of this information, emotional information from around him, from everywhere, from his relationships, from how he uses his masculine energy in his emotional space, how he experiences the world. A Mercury in Leo, though, is someone who can find it really difficult to speak up because they have a bit of a perfectionist ideal around communication because their concern is, what if I say the wrong thing and people don't like it? Okay. And especially because he's a Cancer, so they do want to be a little bit more thoughtful towards people unless you fuck them over and then they will hold a grudge. 50 Cent is a Cancer. This is someone who can use the depths of his emotional stuff. He can use that as well in sport with a Mars in Cancer there. But I think one of the things about Ollie is going to be his communication and really not trying to be perfect with it. I think that's going to be part of his lesson for the next couple of years with the South Node in Leo. Now, Ollie is also having a nodal reversal right now, seeing his way forward by learning these lessons from the past, right? Now, again, Pisces South Node, trauma running through the family line. This kind of looks like both also the mother and father line experiencing a bit of trauma, different types of trauma, but okay. And again, with the Saturn in Taurus, just like Will, experiencing the father as someone who had to work very hard or someone who was a bit materialistic, to be honest, and not a lot of feelings there. Someone who's here to bring change, has these same kind of wounding placements here as well. And really, this year, we are moving away from some of the more harsh energies that have been really up in Ollie's business. He will face a little bit of tension once we get to halfway through the year. I mean, both he and Will are going to have another activation of their way that they have experienced their father. We have the childhood wound placement will move into Taurus. So that will affect these two boys individually and a number of the other guys on the team born in the same year. But it's also going to have an overall effect on the whole Carlton energy. I'll make another video on that, but it will have a huge effect on Carlton really being able to release these wounds of the father, which obviously when we're dealing with AFL, we are talking about some of the negative experiences that the men have had, either within the team or as fans or dodgy shit going on in the background. We're going to be starting to be able to release a lot of those things. Ollie, let's see how you go. As long as exactly what I said about getting a Scorpio energied Will Hayward, as long as Carlton keeps their head in the game and they're not sneaky or deceitful, then these water energied people will be great. Okay. Let's have a little look at Campbell Chesser. Campbell Chesser are Taurus. Now, Carlton are a Taurus energy team, okay? So that also kind of aligns. But Campbell Chesser was one for me that because he was a Taurus, I had my reservations. Because one of the problems with Carlton was the fact that they were stubborn. They are a Taurus energy team. They are a team that did not like change. So Taurus energy people do have a hard time with that. Okay. They really have a hard time with things that change suddenly. Now, being a Sun, Mercury, Lilith in Taurus, there is a wounding around this. Having a Lilith in Taurus is sort of rejecting parts of yourself that are stable, parts of yourself that are related to material possessions and material worth. That's quite difficult when you have a Sun and a Mercury in Taurus, okay? Because parts of who you are inherently as a person and how your mind works, you are somewhat rejecting those. All of those Taurus placements right now are being activated for the final time for the planet of chaos. So the last 7 to 8 years that Campbell has kind of been experiencing a bit of chaos in these placements, that's about to start to settle down for a little bit, but not completely settle down. The chaos is about to leave, but the father wound territory is about to roll in. So Campbell, you could have an up and down kind of year with the energy that you're dealing with right now. And I would suggest you come and get a birth chart reading of me and bring your birth time, because I'll be able to tell you exactly what is going to be happening to you. Because as well as having the childhood wound move into your rejected self mother wounding place, you're also going to have chaos enter your Saturn placement. So a Saturn in Gemini means that you kind of experienced your father as two people or somewhat crazy. I'm sorry, but that's just how it works. It also means that you really have to learn how to communicate a lot better than you do. Okay. With a Mercury in Taurus, you're someone who's a bit surface level with your communication. And there is this requirement really for you to learn the other side of it, right? To learn how to communicate from a deeper emotional space. Now, that's quite difficult for you because with a moon in Pisces, that tells me that there's a lot of trauma that runs through the mother line and that you experienced your mother as someone who, again, sort of like Cancer energy, is someone who was a bit depressed or who didn't have any feelings, and didn't have any feelings much harsher with a moon in Pisces than if it was a moon in Cancer. Experiencing your mother through that energy tends to be someone who can really turn them off, or someone who experienced a lot of trauma and exists in that space. So part of that reason really makes a lot of sense to why there is a Taurus stellium in this chart, because it's really when you experience your mother through a Pisces energy, and when you have experienced your mother through this trauma energy, that your mother was someone who had experienced a lot of trauma, a lot of the time we do see a lot of surface level coming out on the other end, because if they were someone who didn't feel comfortable to talk about feelings, where are you learning that from? Okay. And especially with the Saturn in Gemini. You do have a Jupiter in Leo, and that is a very lucky placement. And this year you will be seeing what gets in your way of really being able to shine your light. So that will be very helpful. And you're going to find that out in some really, really fucking chaotic ways. You've probably been dealing with that mother trauma stuff quite a lot for the past couple of years, but that is going to be released. Okay. We are in the final, 3 weeks of your mother wound stuff about to finalize and leave. And then you are going to be really starting a whole new journey to finding your worth. And you are going to be able to use this uplifting Mars in Aquarius energy. Now, Mars in Aquarius is a stunning placement for AFL, because it means that when he is using his masculine energy, he is able to pivot. He is able to change. He is able to see things from a different perspective. The Uranus in Pisces placement means that there is an intuitive quality to the way that you evolve, and it does have to come from overcoming trauma placements. And you are dealing with that very heavily right now, but that's going to lift. And when that lifts, you're going to have all of this amazing Aquarius energy. I think you're going to have a fantastic end of Jan into Feb in Aquarius season. I think that's going to feel very good, because a lot of this heaviness is about to get lifted. But I think we will really be able to see Campbell Chesser come into his best energy, for lack of a better way to say it, around the middle of the year. And that is going to have to come through some chaos. And so be careful. Be careful. You're going to be someone who I'm going to have to check on a weekly basis about being careful. Okay. Especially injury wise. Tauruses tend to be pretty solid though. I don't know about that Chiron in Capricorn though. That is a wound of thinking that you're never going to have success. Very active right now. Hopefully you're dealing with that one too. Let's move on to Mr. Tall Giant, Liam Reidy, a Gemini. So I'm going to put all of my past feelings about Gemini men to the side for now, because we're going to be talking about Mr. Liam Reidy from a football perspective. Okay. Good luck being able to outthink this man. Somebody with a sun in Gemini, a Venus in Gemini, a Mars in Gemini is someone who can think circles around people. This man never stops thinking. Never stops thinking. Now, there is a bit of trauma in the mother line. Okay. when you have a Gemini child, it tells me that you sort of need to be able to see things from a different perspective. And then seeing that trauma in the mother line makes a lot of sense. Okay, Saturn in Taurus, like a couple of the other boys. So experiencing dad as someone who was a very hard worker or someone who was a bit fucking materialistic. Experiencing mum and dad in completely opposite energies there. Potentially, they did not get along very well. And a lot of Gemini children are from families like that, where there just wasn't space for them to have their ideas. Now, Mercury in Cancer is an interesting one for this Gemini stellium because it does mean that there is an emotional component to the way that his mind works. So the giving and receiving of communication is somewhat intuitive, and a Mercury in Cancer person is sort of someone that wants you to think they know more than they know. And being that he's a Gemini, he would be very good at that. This is a cheeky man. This is someone who is going to be very able to start shit while he is playing. And he's so big that I don't think anyone's going to be able to push him around. And I find that incredibly funny. Uranus and Neptune in Aquarius, like pivots like you wouldn't believe, very intelligent. Everybody is going to underestimate how intelligent this person is because of the size of him and because of the playfulness of his energy. Okay. Now, he's got a Chiron in Sagittarius, which is a wounding around believing his own truth, which again nails down this kind of jokester energy. The Lilith in Capricorn is kind of a rejected self that he thinks that he'll never actually achieve the success that he wants to achieve. And that probably is something that he learned about himself from how he experienced his mother as a child. And the not trusting himself part, obviously straight from dad, Saturn in Taurus. Like we didn't know dad on a very deep level. Okay. So, yeah, I think that he's going to be quite underestimated. And I love the fact that both him and Piro are Geminis. And I think it's really interesting because they are the only Geminis. They are the only Geminis that we have. And I think having them just as these tall, in the middle of everything characters is particularly interesting. And I am working on looking across the whole AFL at where their Geminis are situated because as far as I can remember, I don't think anybody else has 2 Gemini rucks. Just saying. So I'm really interested in how that plays out. Having a Jupiter in Taurus, though, Mr. Liam Reidy, I can tell you right now, your best expansion is through hard work. And it does actually give you a lot of luck in money. And it does actually give you a lot of luck in having a good external reputation of people seeing you and liking to be around you, which as a Gemini men tend to have a bit of a fun energy. So they always got bros around them. I think you're a very interesting character. And I'm really interested to see what you've got to bring to Carlton. I think it's going to be excellent. So I'm going to stop there with going through some of the new guys. Please let me know if there is somebody that you want me to have a look at in a bit of a deeper way. I am going to do some more videos about what we can kind of expect coming energy-wise for the overall Carlton, because I think it's really interesting with some of the big energies this year with what we can expect. But let's look at poor old Jesse Motlop. I thought that this was going to be one of his best years. And now something has occurred. So what I'm going to put up now is the birth chart of Jesse and the day that his injury happened. This is the birth chart of Jesse, which is this part here on the inside, right? See how there's 2 circles, this purple part here on the inside. And then this part on the outside is the energy on the day he got injured. So I don't have Jesse's birth time. Please, somebody, if you would like to give it to me, I would love to have it. But I have based his birth time off some of the things that I know about his career and obviously when this injury occurred, because the energy has been friggin' wild. So one of the interesting things about Jesse, before we even get into that, is this little part of his chart over here. Let me try and zoom in here. This particular part right here. The 6th house is the house that represents the part of our life that is our life, right? The material world, our habits, our body, the relationship we have with our body, the relationship we have with the mind inside of this body, right? Just the full physical experience, okay? Now, the 6th house it tends to be where you can see kind of injury stuff, right? Where you would see health stuff, where you would see sickness stuff, right? Because it is about the physical and the body. Now, Jesse's Neptune placement, which is about illusion, is about delusion. Neptune looks after the ancestral energy, and it's the ruler of Pisces. Pisces looks after disease, right? His is in Aquarius at 10 degrees. Neptune in Aquarius at 10 degrees. So there is something that he will do with his career and or legacy that is going to be different from everybody else from his family line. We can tell that from the Neptune placement. But the fact that it's in the 6th house, it does tell me that the karmic energy has a say in his physical life, okay? On the day of the injury, we had Pluto, we had Venus, and the sun had just entered the 6th house. Okay. So Pluto represents the underworld space. And at 3 degrees, it's somewhat collecting information. Okay. Now, Venus at 23 degrees of Capricorn is asking us to put a lot of work in and to move our worth to something that aligns with us authentically. The sun at 21 degrees is looking for truth in this energy of Capricorn, all right? So what are we focused on? What are we locking in? What long-term goals am I making? What is my truth when it comes to how hard I can work and what focuses I want to have? So this is his Saturn. This is his Saturn. So his Saturn makes this aspect here, which is constantly asking for adjustments in his ancestry. Now, a Saturn in Cancer at 12 degrees, there's a lot of mother wounding there. But this is the mothers on the father's line. Having a Saturn in Cancer is somebody who, you either had a dad who was very loving and very emotional with you, or someone who was quite cold and very much following the rules. 12 degrees is a Pisces degree related to trauma. So it's telling me that there's trauma there. Okay. But what we want is we want to see who Saturn in the sky is talking to. So Saturn was asking, what are we locking into the next cycle? Because he's almost finished his cycle. And at 26 degrees, he's looking at things in the physical world. He's looking at what the worth of these things are. Okay, now that is making an opposition, which is these lines here, with the first house, which is Jesse, how we see him. Okay, so making an opposition. And with the vertex in his first house, that's going to cause a fated moment. All right. And then that fated moment is in opposition with his Mars, his masculine energy. Okay. And that vertex, that fated moment in his first house on his Jupiter. Okay. On his expansion, getting in the way. What's getting in the way? Okay. So Jupiter, Virgo, expands habitually, right? Is affected somewhat by the family energy though. Again, Jesse is someone who has a lot of family trauma in his chart. And so this is the vertex activating Jupiter in the first house. So it is trying to cause some kind of change, right? And it is saying that he needs to make a conscious effort to explore the groups of people that he's around. And it's working in harmony over here with where he's supposed to be going, which is sort of transforming his whole family concept of like what abundance and material worth is like, right? So we're getting this energy over here of like we're working in harmony with where you're going. So somewhat the injury is definitely fated injury, right? Now it's making adjustments here in his 8th house of transformation. It's opposing, like I said, his masculine energy, which this one is very much related to the AFL, the Mars sign, in my opinion. This is in his 7th house as well. So the way that he uses his masculine energy is really reliant on the relationships around him. This is also asking for adjustments in those relationships, working in harmony with 5th house stuff, which is it's your childhood stuff where you maybe felt powerless as a child. It's also about fun and pleasure and, working in harmony with those things. It's here, though, that's very interesting, right? We're working in harmony with the sun, which has just entered the 6th house looking for truth. Okay. So a fated moment that is looking for truth. And it is squaring down here his family energy, right? Now, like I said, there is a lot of trauma energy in his family space, and having Pluto in the 4th, definitely, right? 19 degrees as well, cause and effect. So there is some kind of truth that Jesse actually will find from this, okay? Definitely. So it was definitely fated, Jesse. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It definitely was. And then if we see here, we have all of this Capricorn energy, right? And it's marching its way up into the 6th house. So there is definitely like clarity coming on like what he was supposed to learn, right? And it's going to be definitely involving the Neptune because his 6th house has a lot to do with which the relationship with his body and his everyday life has a lot to do with the legacy of his ancestors, right? And him needing to be different to them, change something about it. So some other things that are going on is down here we have, this placement of Lilith in the sky, which is the rejected self. And, she's a little bit wild at the moment, but she's right here. So opposing his rejected self wound, but also right here on his masculine energy and also right here next to his sun. Okay. So Lilith in the sky, talking to his energy in the way that it is, it's lighting up a lot of parts of him that he's rejected about his truth, especially when it comes to his ancestry. And we have that Lilith working in harmony with Saturn and Neptune in the sky. So a lot of karmic energy coming through for Jesse and a lot of change being forced to happen because we have Lilith there is also causing friction in this making change space, which Jesse's is at 28 degrees, which is related to the mother. So unfortunately, Jesse, there is a lesson that needs to be kind of understood. I don't want to say learned, it doesn't seem learned, but these things are all kind of being activated at once. The moon is almost on his moon as well, in his house of money and worth. So there's definitely some kind of traumatic emotional situation that has like distracted him, that has caused whatever weakness this is in the body. Now, the other thing to mention is with all of this Capricorn energy that has been really rolling through, Capricorn energy rules the lower body. So with all of this Capricorn energy teaching lessons to Jesse in his 6th house, in his habitual everyday life, lower body injury, likely. So I think this injury was meant to happen. And I think that something good will come of it. I want to skip forward actually to September for Jesse. Let's see. Okay, so let's have a little look here in September for Jesse. So I've put in the 2nd of September. That'll do for now. We'll just have a little bit of a look of what is going on in his 10th house, which is his career house. Okay, so there's not going to be anything in there in the 10th, in his 10th house. Okay. What's going on to see? This is great down here, having the sun in his 1st house, having career in his 1st house. Okay. I mean, it does look somewhat promising for an early return for Jesse. And I think it's got a lot to do with the way that he kind of allows himself to heal. Let's just go back a month. You see, Pluto is going to be in his 6th house and it's going to be there at 4 degrees. That's a lot for him because that underworld space at 4 degrees is going to be bringing up some family stuff. But I actually think that that's going to be quite good for Jesse because, like I said, there is like this massive energy that's trying to heal a lot of family stuff for him. And if you see down here, we've got like the AC, which is like how people see us, right? The first reputation. This is at the start of August. That's going to be in his 3rd house and it's going to be almost here. It's going to cross here, which is his south node. And that's the reputation in the sky coming past like where he's comfortable. And then it's going to hit his sun. Really interesting of what's going to happen because you've got Uranus up here as well. Uranus will be in Gemini. So Uranus is going to be on his Lilith. So May, June, Uranus is going to cross his Lilith, which is a wound placement that affects his inner values and is in his karmic house. So I think May, June, July, Jesse, if you're watching, May, June, July is going to determine how quickly you're going to be able to recover from this injury. And if you really lock in on the emotional work, okay, yes, the physical work, but like you're somebody who's very good at that. But if you lock in on the emotional work, you're going to heal a lot faster. And I know that sounds weird to anyone who's like, that's not how it works. Okay, but that energetically, that is how it works. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Anyway, I hope that you found some of that interesting, and I hope it gave you a little bit of hope, because I feel quite good about Carlton in 2026. I think we've made a lot of good choices that are going to lead us to a much better place by the end of the year. I am still on the side of a 2026 Carlton grand final. I thought it would be with Collingwood, but I'm not too sure. I have to look in deeper into their energy with all of the shit that they've been dealing with. You know what? Let's just grab a card and see what the energy is around Carlton making the grand final, because I do love a little bit of magic. Let's just get a couple of cards around the grand final for Carlton in 2026, please. What are the chances? This is chaos, right? This is choosing chaos, which is what they've done, okay? And this is perseverance. So through chaos and perseverance. And then what? Six of Wands, recognition. 10 of fucking Pentacles. That's all I need. That's all I need. And the Sun card on the fucking bottom. Are you kidding? Let me interpret that for you really quickly before we shut this down. This is about having to go through a tunnel of chaos, which is exactly what they chose when they put Graham in charge in August last year. Okay. They will continue to have these chaotic jumps forward. And I'm going to find that in their energy when I do my next Carlton Ramble. This is about really having to persevere, right? This is about understanding that you need to put in a lot of hard work. But Six of Wands and 10 of Pentacles, this is getting recognition that leaves a different legacy. And the Sun card is the happiest card in the fucking deck. So put your money on Carlton making the grand final. That's all I got to say. And that makes me very happy. And so until my next Carlton Witch Ramble, if you would like me to do a breakdown of your birth chart and let you know what kind of fuckery is coming for your year, please come and book an appointment. I love getting people who have found me through Carlton. I've had a number of clients who have found me through my weird Carlton ramblings. So please do come and find me. I'm not your regular spiritual woo-woo person. I got into astrology by trying to prove it wrong. So I understand a skeptic, but I'm here to help. And I think a lot of people are going to need it this year. So for anyone watching with birth times, once again, please hit me up. I want the mums. I want the birth times. Thank you so much. And as always, around here, stay weird, but also go Blues.